You've never heard of him. But without his fortune, the United States of America might not exist. Not as we know it. No battlefield victory, no presidential speech, just one man, working in silence, opening his personal checkbook to save a nation teetering on collapse. His name was Stephen Girard, an immigrant, a banker, a ship captain. The richest man in the early United States, and the one who risked everything, not for fame, but for the survival of an ideal. To understand his impact, we must go back to a time when America was weak, broke, and untested, when empires laughed at the experiment, and when a single individual became the government's last desperate hope. Stephen Girard was born in Bordeaux, France, in 1750. Blind in one eye from birth and ridiculed for his appearance, he had no aristocratic blood, no formal schooling. But he had something far more dangerous: discipline, ambition, and an uncanny grasp of numbers. At age 14, he was already apprenticing on merchant ships. By his 20s, he was captain of his own vessel, navigating trade routes through danger and opportunity. He came to America in 1776, the same year the Declaration of Independence was signed. Philadelphia became his home, and chaos became his fuel. As revolution broke out, Girard didn't join the fight with a musket. He opened a store, began investing in shipping and goods, and soon ran an international trade network. By the end of the Revolutionary War, he wasn't just wealthy, he was already becoming one of the most powerful private citizens in the country. But Girard didn't stop. He built a shipping empire that stretched across the Atlantic and Caribbean, moving sugar, tobacco, textiles, and other high-risk, high-profit goods. When yellow fever ravaged Philadelphia, he stayed behind to care for the dying. When other elites fled, he converted a mansion into a hospital, organizing, logistics, paying salaries, and even cleaning rooms himself. He became a trusted figure in the city, but behind his quiet generosity was an ever-growing fortune and a mind obsessed with order. Stephen Girard was not charitable because it looked good. He did it because it worked. In 1811, the charter for the First Bank of the United States expired. Most feared financial instability, but one man saw opportunity. Girard bought the bank himself. Not as a stakeholder, not through a shell company. He bought the building, the assets, and the structure with his own money, and reopened it as Girard's Bank. It became the strongest private financial institution in the country. When the U.S. government couldn't finance itself, Girard could. And then, just 1 year later, America fell into the crisis that would define Girard's legacy. In 1812, war was declared against Great Britain. But the United States was woefully unprepared. Its army was small, its navy outdated, and its economy shattered. Congress attempted to sell war bonds to fund the military. No one bought them. Investors didn't trust the government. Banks refused to lend. Soldiers weren't paid. Supplies dried up. Morale broke. The Republic was failing, bleeding money faster than it could print it. The British burned Washington, D.C. to the ground, and the financial system was days from collapse. One man stepped forward, Stephen Girard. He purchased 95% of the U.S. government's war bonds using his personal wealth. He underwrote loans to the Treasury directly. He paid contractors, suppliers, and military expenses out of his private bank. He didn't ask for control. He didn't charge extortionate rates. He didn't even issue a press release. He just saved the country. While Congress argued and the nation panicked, Girard quietly moved money behind the scenes, making sure the war effort didn't collapse. Without his intervention, the War of 1812 might have ended in surrender. The United States might have dissolved before it turned 40, and history would have taken a very different path. But who was he really? Stephen Girard never ran for office. He had no family crest. He didn't build palaces or wear medals. He never married again after a brief, failed union. He worked, he walked, he invested. He read newspapers every morning. He counted every cent. And he believed in America, even more than many of its native-born sons. To Girard, this country was not just a homeland, it was an idea worth financing. When Girard died in 1831, he left behind an estate valued at over $7 million, an astronomical sum, making him the richest man in the United States at the time, adjusted for inflation. That's over $100 billion today. And then, he gave almost all of it away. He had no heirs, no children. Instead, he left his fortune to hospitals, public works, and a massive trust to establish Girard College, a free school for orphaned boys. His will specified no priests, no clergy, no religious instruction, only science, mathematics, discipline, and enlightenment. The school would stand for centuries, educating those society ignored. His money would continue to serve long after he was gone, and he asked for nothing in return. No statues, no national holidays, no monuments on the mall, just a name carved on a tomb, and a legacy buried beneath the headlines of louder, more flamboyant men. But make no mistake, Stephen Girard shaped the financial backbone of America. He stepped in when no one else would. He believed in quiet action over loud promises, and he changed the fate of a nation without ever firing a shot. He didn't want to be remembered, but now you do. Stephen Girard, the banker, the sailor, the silent architect of American survival, the richest man you've never heard of, and the reason you still live in the United States of America. We talk about power, we obsess over presidents, generals, and tycoons, but sometimes real power wears no uniform. It walks among us, quiet, severe, calculating. It holds no sword, yet controls the war. It casts no vote, yet funds the future. Stephen Girard never stood at the podium. He stood behind it, financing what others feared. In a time when the world still believed in kings and empires, he believed in something radical, that a man with no title could still move history, that money, when placed with precision, could turn the tide of war, stabilize a trembling republic, and build schools for the forgotten. Girard didn't build a dynasty. He didn't leave behind a bloodline of heirs. He left behind a blueprint for how to wield wealth without spectacle, for how to lead without applause, for how to save a nation without demanding it. Remember your name. Today, his story is barely taught. His name is a footnote, a forgotten monolith buried beneath the rubble of louder legacies. But maybe that's exactly how he wanted it. Because Girard didn't live for recognition. He lived for results. And in that quiet calculation, he became something greater than a financier. He became a safeguard, a firewall, a final defense. So the next time you hear someone say, "One person can't change history," tell them about the one-eyed sailor from France who saved the United States with a pen and a ledger book, who never sought power, yet had more than any president. Tell them about Stephen Girard. And remember this, it wasn't the cannons that saved America in 1812. It was the checkbook, held steady by the hand of a silent patriot. History tends to remember the loudest voices, the conquerors, the presidents, the men with armies and applause. But there's another kind of power, a colder, quieter kind. The kind that doesn't command attention, but controls direction. The kind that isn't worshipped, but is absolutely essential. Stephen Girard was that kind of power. He didn't raise a flag. He didn't write the Constitution. He didn't lead men into battle. But when the nation's lungs began to collapse, when no one else would breathe life into the dream, he did. With ink, with numbers, with unwavering resolve. There are no Stephen Girard movies, no bookshelves filled with biographies, no presidential libraries bearing his name, but his fingerprints are everywhere, in every school built for the forgotten, in every crisis stabilized by courage instead of ego, in every belief that this country, imperfect as it is, can still be worth saving. He reminds us that patriotism doesn't always wear a uniform. Sometimes it wears spectacles and spends long nights balancing ledgers so soldiers can eat in the morning. He reminds us that leadership doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers, "I will do what needs to be done, even if no one thanks me." Stephen Girard didn't want your applause. He wanted results, and he got them. So as the spotlight fades and the noise of history turns to silence, remember the man who saved America once, not with speeches, but with sacrifice. Stephen Girard, the quiet force behind a nation's survival, and the proof that you don't have to be remembered to matter forever.